So here we go. We've just talked about the version 4.3, which is about to be released, the couple of cool new features in there, and we would have loved to put in even more, which, well, as a matter of fact, is not possible because we cannot wait for all the cool features to be completed to do an actual release. So we're trying to increase the amount of minor version releases and therefore be quicker to deliver new features. That's our goal, to make more minor releases, and therefore to have they will be small. They will be not that high profile, but will still include 1 or 2 or 3 nice new features. And what we have currently in the pipeline for the version 4.4, actually, if you look closely, my call, I changed the call title to 4.4 Plus, because as always, with such plannings, you cannot never be sure which will actually be in a final release. But that is at least our planning for today. So I'm going to talk about 2 major sections. One is the improvements of existing features, and the other one is the new features. I think it's very important to say that there will be an improvement of existing features, because that's not always the case. So sometimes features just stay the way they are, because they have been this way, and if we change them, they will break workflows or something like that, things that people got used to. But it is important to improve existing features as well, to not let those things just to be dead code basically, and then just maintain, let's say, bug fixes and stuff, but also to introduce new features, to introduce new functionality to existing features. So I have a nice cloud here, which highlights the more important ones, and I think most of them are actually important, but I think the most interesting ones, most fancy ones are here, like stuff like mentions and tasks, something that has been asked for since a long time. Collaborative editing, also something that has been asked for some time now, and which is a very exciting functionality. And also, working with translations. That's basically it's not a really new use case, but a use case that seems to be more important currently. So we had translation and multi-language projects in the past. Those were mainly customization solutions that were tailored to a specific use case. And since this is a returning request, we decided to put that on the roadmap and integrate translation and multi-language features directly into the product to make them more integrated, more easy to use, and less customization effort. So let's first walk through the improvements that we are planning. I've split them up or I've grouped them into sub-sections here. First, I want to talk about user interfaces and user experience. So this might sound like small things, but I think they may have a big impact actually, because in the end, it's the user experience that counts. It's not necessarily what the underlying technology does or stuff, but it's what the user experiences when working with the software, and we want to improve on that. And there are quite some places where we can improve. I have picked 2 here that are on the roadmap. One is this two-factor authentication, which is already possible in the current releases. So you can use one-time password, or you can use modern tools like web authentication, like a YubiKey, stuff like that. You can use those things to secure your login into the wiki, but it's a little bit cumbersome. It's not really a good, a smooth experience. Something that other tools might solve better, and we try to improve that because security is important. Because two-factor authentication is something that should really be a standard for everyone. And if it is complicated to do, people will just not do it. That's a fact. So our goal is to make this a better experience, so people are more likely to actually use two-factor authentication. Another one that is really important from my understanding is the so-called enhanced standard UIs. So what is that? As you know, we are using MediaWiki as a base software. MediaWiki is used by the Wikipedia project, and the Wikipedia projects are very conservative. They do not change things very often. It takes long for them to adapt to, let's say, modern principles of design, for example, or user experience design. And if you use the wiki, you will face this in various places. I have just picked 3 here that you probably know. One down here is just it's a special page. It's called wanted files or wanted pages. There's a similar one. Basically, it's a list of red links. It just shows you where in the wiki there are red links, where there are things linked that are not actually in the wiki. And it's a powerful tool. It's a very important part of the wiki's functionality. But as you can see, it really looks very outdated. There's lots of text. There's very odd kind of paging applied here, or list view. It doesn't feature anything like filtering, let's say, for namespaces or for, let's just have a search term, anything. So it is a super simple user interface that, well, it can be difficult to use. Or let's have a look at this one up here. That's the revision history of a page. A very important feature of the wiki too, being keeping revisions of changes and track of changes is a power feature of the wiki, and one of the reasons why people actually use or choose wikis. But it looks really odd. Sometimes it's hard to understand. It's cluttered, and this also deserves quite some rework and some love. Or here the last item, that's a category page, which is okay, I believe, but you see it has two main sections. One shows us the pages, which is an indexed view. It shows a B or A, or it shows the first letter, basically. And then we have at least the media contents here, which are already shown. But this also, can have some improvements. And I believe working on those standard user interfaces that MediaWiki provides and making them more modern, making them more usable, can really push the users as a wiki. Because if the interfaces do not look good and are not easy to use, people will not use it. And if they do not use it, we are failing the purpose of the wiki. The next thing about user interface and user experience is obviously that we need to provide visual editors for various things. We do have the visual editor already for the wiki pages themselves. So wiki page consists of wiki text. And wiki text is, it's a really simple format, easy to learn. Many people are scared of wiki text, and therefore it's usually hidden using a visual editor. And the same is true for various other things that live in the wiki and work in the wiki. So, for example, we have we have a pretty good forms extension that allows you to create very nice and appealing forms in JavaScript that you can use for various reasons. For example, for various use cases. So, for example, you can create a contact form from them or something like that, or you can make it. You can use it as an alternative to page forms. And there's a forms editor already in there, but it is it is a little bit bare bone. It could be improved a little bit. That's also on our roadmap. We want to make sure that this editor is easy to use, so people can actually make advantage out of the forms functionality, because currently it requires quite some expertise to create such a form. And if the forms editor lives up to the expectations of a user, to a modern forms editor, then we can surely make the forms functionality to be used more. And that's one goal. The other thing is the workflows editor. You probably have heard of the workflows extension, which we deliver since the last minor version, which is a powerful tool to automate things in the wiki. And we deliver a couple of default workflows for default workflows that they can choose from, and which will probably be good in many cases. But it's not uncommon that people want to modify them, to adapt them to their needs, or even create complete new ones, which can already be done, but it can only be done with using an XML file, which is which you also need to have some expertise on. And we are planning to add an editor. You might have seen this kind of interface already. It's a very common interface. It's a BPMN.io interface. You might have seen it in different applications already. So one could almost say it's some kind of a standard interface. So improving the workflows definition editor basically with such an interface will be a big step forward. And then, of course, we have the book functionality, which already features a visual editor, but this will get also some treatment and will be improved in means of usability, so you can more easily change the book structures. This is going to be very important, because in one of the next slides you will hear that we have additional changes to the book functionality on the plan. Yeah, actually here. So here on this slide, you see this is not about user experience anymore, or user interface. This is about functional changes. We not just want to make it easier to use those features, but we also want to make them better in what they are doing. So one important feature is the bookshelf, which allows you to group pages of the wiki into some hierarchical structure, and then browse them as a book or export them as a book, have some book navigation and stuff like that. And one limitation to that is that currently you can only assign one book to one page to a book. So one page cannot be part of multiple books. We do have workarounds for that, but well, workarounds are workarounds, right? It would be much better to have this as a native functionality, and that's currently on the plan. So we're going to improve bookshelf here, make it easier to compose books from the content, and especially allow better interaction with the content. Another item here on the list is read confirmation. Read confirmation is also an important feature, but unfortunately, for historical reason, it is tightly coupled to another feature called page assignments, which does work, but it comes with some limitations, because page assignments also does other things, and that's not what's that sometimes conflicts with the read confirmation idea. So we're going to decouple that and make sure that read confirmation can be used more standalone, more easily, and without any side effects by, for example, using page assignments. Another one on the list here is cognitive process designer. That's a very difficult word. You might know it. It is used for creating processes on the wiki. Please do not confuse that with what we've seen on the last slide. While it looks very similar, actually it uses the same interface, these are different things. The workflows editor will actually enable you to create a workflow on the for the wiki. It will be specifically designed to create workflows with the capabilities of the workflow extension. So you cannot add any arbitrary activity into such a workflow, but only activities that can actually be carried out by the wiki's workflow engine. This is a difference to the cognitive process designer, which you can use for basically designing any process that you want, that you might have in your company, in your organization. And it allows you to just drag and drop stuff, like activities, do your flows between those. You can describe them, and it will then create pages for each activity. This is a powerful feature because it allows you to add additional information to those pages, to describe what this activity is about, to link stuff, to provide just more context information, which goes beyond what the visual part of the process diagram can do. Unfortunately, the management of those so-called entity pages, which is basically just activities, but also some flow pages, it is a little bit difficult. It has some odd namings, some IDs encoded into names, which makes it sometimes hard to link them properly, or reuse them, or even to recognize them properly. This is something that we want to improve to make this tool in general more usable and more better to be integrated into the overall wiki system. Then we plan to improve on the notifications. That's very important. Actually, we are planning to have a complete overhaul of this functionality. We're going to exchange the current notification system with the new one. Why do we do that? Mainly because the current notification system that we're using is a third-party component which is very hard to extend and to customize. And we have learned that it is really important for the people to customize their notifications, for example, by adding their logo or their colors to the email notifications, or even have to have HTML email notifications, which means that they can be styled, that are not just plain text. And also we want to make it easier for people to know what they get notified for, so to manage what they subscribe, what kind of notifications they receive. So that's going to be an actual big change for the user, because it will change how they will interact with notifications. We're going to improve on the PDF export. This has various reasons. One is a technical reason, actually. We need to modernize the converter engine. It has some limitations, some issues with page breaks, for example. But the other one is we want to also make things more easy to customize. Again, so currently creating a PDF template is quite some work, and it even involves deployment to the server infrastructure. So you cannot do it from the web interface, from the browser, but you need to have some developer, something like that, some technician to create the template and to deploy it to the server to actually use it. That's a big problem, and we want to make that better. So in the future, you will be able to design your PDF templates directly on Wiki. You can have multiple of them. You can design them differently. So for example, you can have a different PDF template for policies than you have for let's say, how-to documents. You can improve your own styling here. You can then influence the head and the foot areas of the page. We also aim for a more flexible way to add metadata to head and foot, for example, by doing some queries in the context of the export. So there are quite some plans to change this and to improve that. Then again, we're going to work on the search. Search is also one very important part of the application, and it desperately needs an update of the backend from a technical point of view, but also we want to improve the indexing of the contents and therefore allow for better and quicker search results. So that's one goal of this improvement. Last but not least, on this slide, we have the so-called hover cards. It's a side feature, but it's really really neat. It's a nice feature. If you hover a link, there may be some pop-up showing up next to your mouse cursor, which gives you a preview of the page that is linked. But unfortunately, this preview is, well, let's say it's difficult to influence. It's not always a good preview. Sometimes it fetches a bad image, or it doesn't fetch an image at all. And also the text, the information that is presented in this pop-up it's more or less random. It's not, obviously it's not random. It's based on an algorithm, but that algorithm is really it's a black box. It's also a third-party implementation, so it's more or less a black box to us. And we want to improve that feature to make it more easy to control what will be shown as a preview, and also to allow better customization, because using those hover cards can really be an improvement when navigating through the wiki, if used right and if working in a proper way. So that's something that we want to improve on a functional level. Okay, and that's it basically from the list of improvements. So all that we heard until now were existing functionalities that you can already find in the software, that we're going to rethink, to improve, to rework for the next upcoming release. Yeah, but obviously we also want to have some new feature in such a release. It's not just improving what we have, but also adding something new. And we've picked 3 items here. One is the so-called multi-language support. I have mentioned this a little bit earlier already. So we want to allow people to easily maintain multi-language content. And for that, we want to integrate a couple of things. The first item, by the way, the flexible language switch, is actually not a 4.4. I think it's already in 4.3, but it will get its real power with the 4.4 basically. So what is the flexible language switcher? Well, there is already a language switcher that is based on the on the classic inter-wiki links or language links concept of the MediaWiki platform. But we felt like this is not the only way people do multi-language content, or we learned from various projects, and we wanted to support people to create language links or language switching by providing different ways to do that. So for example, you can either have a sub-page approach be automatically configured, so there's no need to do some fancy template magic anymore, but it will be an out-of-the-box functionality. Or it can be used as a, let's say, the classic version, that's the inter-wiki links or language links mechanism. And you can even link statically, which can be a really important thing, because it may allow you to have links to resources that may be missing. Again, that sounds a little bit odd, but it's the concept of red links, a very important concept, because it may allow you to actually identify things that are missing. Then we have the so-called integrated translation workflow. That's also something that is on our plan, which is mainly for the Farm Edition. The Farm Edition currently already features a content transfer mechanism, which allows you to move content from one wiki instance into another wiki instance. And if you use those wiki instances for different languages, we will in future also support you with doing a translation on the fly, supported by, let's say, translation services, external ones or internal ones. Currently, we are working with DeepL. DeepL is probably known to most of you. It's a very famous translation service nowadays, which can also be licensed and used for internal usage, or at least, yeah, they are GDPR compliant, as far as I know. So it's an actual option to use in the business and in the business world. And yeah, we plan to integrate that more tightly into the content transfer mechanism of the Farm Edition, which should then ease actually providing multilingual content in a farm. And last but not least, we have the so-called ad hoc translation. This is also something, thing that we use from the service, from the translation service. It should give you the possibility to just click a button and have a page translated, even without, yes, let's say, using the browser capabilities, because using the browser capabilities is actually not always a good idea. You probably know that your browser sometimes tells you, hey, this page is on let's say, Chinese. Do you want to translate it into English? Obviously, you can do that, but the browser, depending on which browser you use, may then send the information to some outside service and translate it. And obviously, in many cases, in internal wikis, in on-premises installations, or just in business context, you don't really want to do that. So we are going to, as we're anyways working with those services, we're probably going to have an ad hoc translation mechanism also, which allows you to quickly translate a page while you're viewing it, which also, yeah, already covers lots of use cases for many users. Then the next big one here is actually mentions and tasks. I think that's a feature that has been long waited for. So it's quite common in various other softwares to use at mentions, writing at and then a name, and then let's say emitting a notification to a person, for example. And this concept can even be thought a little bit further. You can combine things to create some kind of a simple task management, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. So this is actually this is not going to be one feature. It's going to be 3 features. One feature is the checklists. So basically, just being able to create a checkbox in the visual editor, just as easy as you can do it currently with a regular bullet list or something like that. This checkbox will also be editable using in the view mode, so you don't need to do it in a visual editor exclusively. Then the second feature is the so-called those at mentions, which will allow you to just search for a user when typing at and referencing them. This will already emit a notification, and it will link them, obviously. And then the third part is a dates functionality, which allows you to set dates within Visual Editor again. So just having it basically everywhere. You could use it in a regular paragraph as well, which will just allow you to pick from a calendar item, calendar widget, to pick a date, and it will then be displayed in a proper way. And the main idea is, if we combine those 3 individual features into one thing, we're getting a task management functionality. So if we see a checklist that contains an at mention, this is a task. If we see a checklist that contains an at mention that contains a date, this is a task with a due date. And there will be an additional overview that, yeah, again, lists you all the tasks on the system. It will link the pages, and it will allow you to check them off. And yeah, basically then say, okay, that's done already. It's a very simple mechanism, but it's going to be very powerful, I believe. And I think it will solve a lot of use cases that you might have. Okay, and then last but not least, so-called real-time collaborative editing. So what is this about? First of all, working collaboratively on a wiki is not a new thing at all. That's the main idea of a wiki, to work together on content. But doing this simultaneously is not possible in the wiki at the moment. You probably know this kind of feature from other softwares. I think the big ones like Google or Microsoft feature those for their word processors already. And there may be smaller services also, like Etherpad, that feature such behavior, where you can basically invite people over the network to join your editing session, and you can then see the cursors of each person, and everybody can type, and on everybody's machine, the document will be changing in a real-time manner. And that is a really powerful tool, especially in today's remote working world, where people are working from home or working remote in general. If you have an international team, people live in different countries, and this can come in really, really handy. And as I just said, some other tools like the word processors already feature that, but on the wiki, this is it's not that common. And there have been attempts to bring such a functionality to MediaWiki and the Wikipedia in the past, but they never took off. And we have checked on those attempts. We have discussed this, and we said, okay, that could really be a functionality that is important and of interest for our users. And we decided to put that on our roadmap to create a feature which allows you to edit those pages simultaneously with multiple users together, and then save it to the wiki as a result. I'm not going to talk too much about this at the moment, because there will be a dedicated session for this in the afternoon. So please stay tuned. And I think, there's one last slide here that I wanted to share with you. That is, well, there are additional things on our roadmap that are more, let's say, technical, but still they are important. So we are working very hard on providing a ready-to-use Docker image, or actually images. We're trying to cover as many use cases as possible with that, starting from the all-in-one container, or all-in-one image that allows you to just start the application and be happy with it, up to having a scalable infrastructure that allows you to serve high-load scenarios. This is, well, you could say it's a little bit it's a side project, because we're using it for our own cloud infrastructure where we have the needs, but we also want to share and reuse this kind of technology for customer setups to basically ease installation and updates, and allow more efficient setups, and allow even more performance setups then. And talking about performance, we have as a very important part of the roadmap, we do have a performance audit on the roadmap, which should make sure that we can improve the application's performance, make it faster with the page loads, but also with the regular interaction. So making it not just making it actually faster, but making it also subject to be felt like it's faster. So reducing the number of clicks, stuff like that. But in this case, the performance audit is really about the technical part. So we're going to reduce the footprint of the software. We are trying to load only things that are actually needed for the time being, because many functionalities actually don't need to be available at any time. In many cases, people just read pages, and in such cases, we don't need to load everything, which will then again result in a faster reading experience. So that's the main goal also on our roadmap, even so it's listed here as a sideshow, because, well, it is important, but obviously it's not an actual new feature.
What about a calendar function, like Google Calendar in each instance? Is something like that planned?
No, it is not. It is not planned. We are trying to focus on, let's say, core functionalities of the wiki. While I completely understand that having a calendar might be a good idea, this is not on the roadmap at the moment. One can already create such a calendar-like functionality using semantic MediaWiki and templating and page forms, which is not that nice, not that integrated. But we also try to not replicate too much functionality, right? So many people do have calendars. They do have Outlook. They do have Google Calendar, whatever. So the calendar, we do not want to reinvent the wheel here. So if we get a calendar functionality, it will probably be a really simple thing, right? And then again, if it is simple, then the question is it sufficient? And yeah, I can answer this question quite clearly. We don't have that on a roadmap at all currently.
There's a follow-up question, and that's maybe a list of due dates then.
Yeah, so that this is mentioned in tasks will basically features of such a thing. So it's, well, the task has a due date, right? So if you have such a checklist line, and you have somebody that is assigned, and you have a due date in it, then obviously you will be able to find that due date as well in a list, and see, yeah, what tasks are up to be are currently important.
Yeah. The next question is about the automated translation. How to work with page edits which have to be retranslated somehow.
Yeah, that's one of the main issues that you have. So it depends on the use case. There are different use cases out there. So to be honest, I'm not the actual expert on the multilingual topic. You may want to reach out to Anja Ebersbach for that. So in general, you usually decide on a leading system. So for example, you have one language that is your leading language, and then you only translate into the other languages. It's a one-way process. In that case, there's no big deal at all, because you just, if there's an edit, a new version of the source variant, you can just retranslate it and have it in the other variants. But the problem is, if you have a more complex setup, like you have two different languages that exist independently and are edited independently, then you might actually end up with such situations where you can say, okay, well, we have conflicting versions here. We have an edit on the one side, we have an edit on the other side. And we're currently working still on solutions for that, for good solutions. In the end, it will be some kind of a merging mechanism probably, but this is so in the making. So I cannot tell too much about details here. We are aware of this topic, and we discussed this, but I cannot share a solution right away.
Okay, let's see where the next question is. Here is mentioned that speech to text in the editor would be another improvement. but there's really something that the device can do. I think the answer is
Yeah.
in the right place here.
It is a very similar topic to the translation. So you could say, okay, of course I can use the device, right? That's true, but the device will use some outbound service. It will send the data to Google, to whatever. Will have to have it translated and then send it back usually. Maybe some devices actually can do that locally. There are maybe local tools available already. In that case, you don't have any issue anyways. But if you send out information, then one could say, well, having it on-site, having an on-site text-to-speech service would be a good thing. But no,
Yeah.
we're not planning to do anything like that currently.
There's the general question: when will version 4.3 be released?
Yeah, I
So we
think
can repeat that.
Verena answered this. We're targeting June or July for that. Yeah, so very soon, basically.
Very soon. Okay, the next one. How good does the Office file, Word or Excel import work? Is there some issues to improve?
I think we need to differentiate here a little bit. So we just learned that copying data from a Word file or Excel file has been improved already. So that I think we can say that. There are still limitations to that. So for example, if there is an image in a Word file, it will not be taken over. That's just not technical, not feasible. You will just get the text. But there is also something called Word import or Office file import. That's different. This is where you upload a Office file, and the Office file gets converted on the server side into wiki text and then be populated as wiki pages. This it will include images as well, and it will also be able to create multiple pages. So, for example, we have some cases where people have quite large Office files, some handbooks written years ago that have hundreds, maybe even thousands of pages. And the good news is the import Office tool can already import the things and split them up. So it could say, okay, I don't want to have one big page with thousands of pages, but I want to have 100 sub-pages, for example, which will ease navigation and maintaining the content.
That's very handy.
Is there improvement? Well, this feature is already in there. We are dealing with bugs basically, but in general, one can say it does already work. Regarding Excel, by the way, well, that's a little bit different. We also have an Excel import. That's not made by us. It's a third-party extension called Data Transfer, which will also allow you to import Excel, and it will not just import the table as it is, but it will create pages from every row. But this needs the Excel to be in a very specific format. So it's not a general purpose tool, but it can come in handy for for, let's say, quick initialization of pages of the wiki in general.
Yeah, of course. Okay, next question. Do you have to plan an integrated reader for Word or PowerPoint files?
No. Integrated reader means that you, similar to what you can do for PDF files currently, that you can basically embed that file into the page and have the content be shown to you. We're not planned to have that for Word or PowerPoint at the moment. This has mainly technical, but also some license reasons. Theoretically, something like that would be possible, but having it in a product is difficult. One could probably think about such a thing as in a project, but even then you would need to think about licensing, because the browser is not capable of displaying such things, so you need to convert it. But such files can only be converted by Microsoft code, like Excel, like PowerPoint, like Word. And hosting the Office suite on a server is, in the best case, a gray zone. So it's going to be very difficult to have that unless you're Microsoft yourself. If you're Microsoft, then you're good. You can do everything. But setting this up in an on-premise environment, has some difficulties and risks probably. And we're not planning to have that in the product.
So it seems that we got the question about the due dates wrong.
Okay.
It was meant that all due dates on all pages should be listed together. Did we address that this way? Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure if I'm mistaking this, but there will be an overview over tasks with the due dates. And this overview will include all pages where you have tasks, not just one. It's not on one particular page, but you might have 4 tasks here and 3 tasks here and 1 task here, and they will be all be summed up in an overview. And this overview will also feature a due date.
So we should have answered that. You could give feedback if this was what you wanted to know. Performance of the wiki. A big question. Windows or better Linux as a server?
Actually, this answer is pretty simple. It's Linux, and that's not because I don't like Windows or anything, but it's actually a matter of fact that several technologies are only supported by Linux. So, for example, one thing that increases performance is the ability to run PHP as a service. And this can only be done on Linux. There's this is not by us. This is just by PHP. PHP doesn't have a service implementation on Windows. That's the case. So and there are various other things like a file system access, which is usually faster on Linux than it is on Windows. There may be differences, and it depends a little bit on the system, but that's, as a rule of thumb, you can say that. So in general, we always recommend using a Linux server for performance reasons.